So welcome everybody, and today I'm going to share a story about some of the trips. So long time ago, before COVID, we used to travel a lot, and when we were traveling, we were trying to combine the leisure with the business. So not just having fun, but it's like seeing the different companies and learning from them. And you might find it's like you might think like, oh, that's super cool, but just let me make it clear that it's kind of difficult to do. So as you can see, it's not neither easy or simple to walk on the high heels. And I hope you appreciate my devotion to learning other culture. Anyway, like 2 years ago, we planned a trip to Japan, and because like a decade ago, I read this book, which is Toyota Way by Jeffrey Licker. I really wanted to understand how the Toyota works. So what is the, how in reality looks what the Toyota is known from. One more comments to this picture, because you may not notice, maybe not all the people notice this one. And this is mostly a comment for the male part of the Polish audience. Is we're not the only nation to wear a socks to the sandals, so keep that in mind when you go into Japan. Anyway, in March 2019, we get into the plane. So to enjoy the view, I decided to get the window seat. This is my window seat in 787 Dreamliner, when I was preparing this presentation, it just struck me this pretty good metaphor for observing different systems, observing different companies, and basically the metaphor is it's super hard to notice something when you don't know what you're looking for. So I call it a mushroom picking principles. Is basically easy to pick mushrooms when you know how they looks like. So when you go into the organization, someone is coming into the organization, and they seen some patterns, they observe some the way different components behave. Then it's just easier to notice some things. So for example, I go into the organization, and I can see, looking at the boards, if the teams are working as a team, or it's more like I have my task, you have your task, and we don't cooperate with each other. So is it like a team focusing on solving the problem? Is it like individuals focusing on their own jobs rather than working together? So why it is important? Because I was aware of what I'm looking for in Toyota, but also I was able to look for this one, but also there is something that could be missing. So keep this in mind when I go through this presentation, that I may be wrong on some of the specific topic. Like for example, a few weeks ago, we have a conversation with Joe Justice, which you have seen yesterday. And Joe mentioned the video from Tesla factory, and he said, I've seen a lot of interesting things there. And I watched this video, and I said, I don't see much. I've seen few items, but not so many. And he said, no, I've seen this video like a few times already, and there's a plenty of things you can notice. And if you have seen the Joe Justice keynote yesterday, then you can see that he is going through those items during his talk. So just because you're looking at something doesn't mean that you're going to see something, because you need to know what you're looking for. Which is another observation I have, is like it's usually a good idea to have someone looking at what is happening in your organization. Now, this is what we end up having a Scrum Master. This is how we end up with having Agile coaches, having mentors. So the question is, how do you see what is happening in your organization? How do you see what is really, going in? Especially when we get into the virtual environment. So it's super hard to chat with each other, like going for a coffee. How do we move into the virtual world, and we still, as Agile coach, Scrum Master, we still observe what is happening in the organization. So coming back to Toyota, So we get for the tour there, and the very first thing we see is like everything is just organized. So by this I mean really every single item has its own place. You won't find a random items in the floor. So for example, if there is just a trash bin, a regular trash bin, it's gonna be put on the square with a yellow line around it, and with the tag saying this is the place where the trash bin should be. Now, you may think like that's normal for the factory, but in fact it is not. We have seen a number of factories, and most of those factories tell us we are lean, so we're doing lean already. And we go into those factories, we walk on the factory, and there is like a pile of inventory, and our guide is like looking at this inventory, say, what is that doing here? So what is exactly this in that place? Why is that here? So, you know, and the reason I'm telling you is it's super easy to say we're lean, or it's super easy to say we're agile, but it's way harder to be there. So there's a difference between what companies do, and there is a difference what the company says. And one of the things, the reason I'm going into those organizations is basically to see what is the reality. So you know, I often hear how awesome the company is, and then we go into the organization. You can learn a lot more about the organization by watching this one. Exactly the same with the agile. I'm being asked, you know, who is agile in Polish market, or who is agile in the world, and I say, yeah, you know, all the companies are saying that they're agile. The question is, you know, how do I discover they're agile? By not going into their company and not seeing them. So this is one of the challenges we have, you know, discovering how the companies work. So just to give you an example about how lean is Toyota can, for example, take the assembly line and extend it or shorten it to speed up or slow down the process of production of the car. And the reason why they want to speed up or slow down is because they see the change into the demand. And they can do this in 2 days. So over the weekend, they can change the speed the factory is working. Now, again, we have this conversation with the companies here in Poland, and they say, okay, we need 3 months to change the factory. We have to change the production line. Right. By now, I guess you have already discovered that we were not allowed to make any pictures. So I'm not going to show you any single picture from the Toyota factory, but still I have a lot of nice pictures from Japan. So I'm going to continue with those pictures. Right. So one of the things I've seen also in Toyota is the visualization, and there's a huge focus on the visualization. Every team, every leader, every manager has its own board, but also there is a different ways of showing what is happening on the production line. So this picture, just to explain why the picture is here, what you can see here is it working for me? No, whoops, sorry. So let me try again. How about now? Not better. So what you can see here, how about now? Not better. Okay, so what you can see is, for some reason, my pen is not working anymore. Anyway, at the right top of this picture, you can see some numbers, and this is where your wagon, so high-speed train, is going to stop. So this is how they solve the problem of, you know, finding the wagon. If you ever try to travel with the high-speed train in Poland, and basically you go into the train station and you try to figure out where your train is going to stop. Here in Japan, what you have is you get exactly the right place where you're supposed to stand. So the people are standing in the queues, waiting for the wagon to stop there. I mean, the doors are going to be here. The doors open, the people leave, you go inside. And you get exactly the same in Toyota. So you get a lot of visualization, a lot of things being displayed. So the message being passed to the organization is basically by the visualizing things, which is great for us to understand, you know, how do we show important things to the organization. Just to give you one more example from Toyota, there is idea of the cabbage field. So when they find a part that is not correctly created, they basically put one next to another, and due to that, they show how many parts they have. Now the question is, if you have a lot of bugs, how you show that you have a lot of bugs? Maybe you can just print each of the bugs on the separate post-it notes or separate A4 paper, and put them all around your office and have a nice conversation. We had this idea in one company when we had like a conversation with the IT development. I say, we have like 40 people and 200 projects going right now, and we have no idea how to stop new projects going in, because starting a new project is super easy in this company. So what we suggested is they have a huge corridor full of glass walls. And what we said to them, how about you print every single project on the one A4 paper, put them in a row, and anytime someone comes to you and asks for the new project, you just say, okay, you take him to the corridor, you show them 200 items you have already in progress, and ask them, which one we remove to start your projects. So the thing about the Toyota is that they, despite they invest a lot into the automation, their tools are usually simple. So they don't have a super fancy tools, but basically they have something that is super easy to change, super adaptive. And think about, again, your tool for visualization, especially the well-known tools for backlog management or the sprint management, is how easy it is to adapt. If you find a better way of showing the data, how easy it is to change the way you work. So just to give you an example, and we'll see if it works for us, because we have some problem with drawing. So let me see if now it doesn't draw anyway. So for some reason, it just stopped working. Now it works. Let me see, it works. Nope, it doesn't work neither. All right, so I'm gonna tell you this about, so don't invest too much time into finding out why my technology is not working. So there's idea, how do you manage the inventory? How do you manage the backlog of items you have prepared? Well, you can invest into the fancy tool, a lot of money, automate this one, and teach people how to use it. Or the other thing you can do is basically go to the nearest shop and get the plastic sheet, put the plastic sheet next to the wall, and now each of the parts that you are creating has a separate row in your tool. So basically what you have, you take a brick, a wooden brick, and when you create that part A, you add a wooden brick at the top of your tool. So basically you can see all the bricks one after another. So now, because this is the one at the bottom is the one you have added at the first time. So this is the item that is staying at your organization for the longest time. So the moment you wanna decide which to take from the factory and deliver to the customer, you just take the item from the bottom of your tool. You remove the brick. You have a number of the place where the brick, where the part is on this brick. So you go there and you pick up the right items. Moreover, on this physical board, you have a limit, so you know how much you should have inventory and how much is too much inventory. So you have a work in progress limit. So think about it. Your advanced tools versus a physical tool being done for like 10, 20 bucks from the part you can easily find in IKEA or in Castorama, and which tool is more adaptive. And the reason I'm saying about this one is because we have a lot of visualization, but basically we have the tools that is super hard to understand, super hard to realize what is happening. So people are using the famous Jira, and one of the trainers says a Jira place the story goes to die. So we have a tool, but in fact we don't have no idea what is inside the tool. So we create another tool to display the information that we have in tool. So we end up with having having a lot of information, but it's hard to understand what is happening. The other concern I have with many companies, we have tools, we show the data, but we don't show important data. So for example, we look at the number of hours we work. how much information you get from this one. Or we look and compare the velocity of different teams, which is basically just if you don't do it, right? So, or there is a, we go for a review and there is a 20 people sitting on the review and there is one guy showing, how I fix the bug. How much value you have from 15 minutes, 20 people looking at the person who fixed the bug. So what is the really information you should show? What is the important information you should show to your organization? How do you make it simple? So how do you visualize this one? This is the question you should get and you should understand. Okay, the next thing about Toyota, what we notice is that amazing speed of everything that is happening. And one of the things we notice that the people are moving just super fast. So we look at this one and say, okay, I couldn't work this way. So I couldn't stand for 8 hours with that speed. And if you remember my mushroom principles, so we get back into this one, is that we see what we're looking for. So like a few weeks ago, again, I have another discussion with Kiro Harada, who is responsible for implementing a delivery system for Toyota. And what he said is, okay, yes, the reason, what is happening in Toyota is they raise the bar. So the reason for what is happening is the company raise the bar, and the goal for Kaizen is to make the employee find a way to meet the goal. So how we as an employee, we make our life easier. So what is happening in Toyota is during the break, they usually spend the break chit-chatting about how we make our life easier. So what Kiro is saying, instead of having a formal retrospective every end of the sprint, how about you spend 15 minutes every day talking about what is the problem, how you can solve it. And this is what you can see in Toyota. So they are the challenging goals, as you can see, this kind of challenging goal, how you park here. And they also let the people solve the problem. So how do we make the environment, how do we create the environment that the company can, that the people can thrive, that the people can solve their own problems. So looking into the Toyota Way 2001, which is the document they have created when the Toyota was growing and from the Japan to the different market, and they say, how do we copy our ideas? How do we move the concept we have created to the different market? And they say, well, this is exactly what we want to focus on, not the tools, not the techniques, but the continuous improvement. So how do we raise the bar for people? How do we make how do we create the challenging environments so people can solve the problem, and also respect for people. So let the people who are having the problem solve the problem, not the management. Well, the management is there. We're going to get back into the role of the management, but this is the line employees who are solving the problem. By the way, to make it clear, we're not talking about the engineers you have right now in your company. You have hired highly educated engineers after 5 years of study. We're talking about the people who started assembling a car. So you don't need to have a high education to do this one. And still the Toyota is saying, how do we take the potential of these people and solve the problems using those people instead of highly educated engineers? Sure, we're using the highly educated engineers, but this is not the bottom of the continuous improvement. You can either have like 5-10 people which are highly educated, or you have 10,000 people who are low educated, but a very small improvement. Like if we can manage to save 1 second and you have 8,000 of this improvement, then we can save a lot. And for example, in Toyota Way, there is a story about 80,000 improvement being implemented in factory in 1 year in US. And when we have a conversation about this one in Poland, in Toyota, what we heard is we have so many ideas for improvement, but we just cannot stop the line over all the time to implement all of them. So we have a queue of improvements we want to implement. So they have a plenty of ideas, they just don't have enough time to implement the idea. So coming back again to Toyota, so there are tools from Toyota, but the Toyota, use them to solve the problem they have currently. So if they find a better way of solving those problems, they're going to throw away the tools. And keep this in mind, that the tools is just a solution of the problem. So don't implement the tools just because someone is using those tools. And the reason for what I'm saying is, like, a Kanban is super popular right now, and everybody is trying to use the Kanban. We have a Kanban board, but basically in Toyota, the Kanban is a simple piece of paper, well, put into the plastic, so that it doesn't get dirty on the factory. And this is for monitoring the level of inventory you have. But when Toyota figure out how to ensure the one-piece flow, so one items go through the whole factory, they don't need Kanban. So again, the Kanban is just a middle step between a lot of inventory and no inventory at all. Now, again, the question to you is, what is your inventory? How do you find the inventory? Which is kind of difficult for us because, we don't have a lot of parts in software development, but we still have a lot of work in progress, which is hard to visible to see, right? For example, work in progress often is like a code we have wrote, requirements we have wrote, and maybe we have done the coding testing, but it's still not integrated. Maybe it's integrated, but it's not on the production. Maybe it's on the production, but the components are not being used. Right, you don't see this inventory. In Toyota, you can see the inventory. In the factory, you can see the inventory. That's a difference. So again, coming back to the previous question, how do we make the inventory visible? How do you visualize your inventory? Now, Kanban is one tool. The other tool I was more interested to see was Andon, and Andon is basically the idea of stopping the line. So the whole concept is, every single employee has a line the simple cord they can pull. And the moment they pull the cord, the yellow light show up over their place of work. And the moment that this one goes up, the leader of the teams walks into his or her place of work and see what is happening and try to help. And if he or she, the leader cannot solve the problem, then the whole line is going to stop. Now, you might find it's kind of risky for the company to stop the line every time you have a problem. But the thing is, the more the line stops, the more there is more need to solve those problems. So the more pressure for solving the problem, the more likely you're going to solve the problem. Now, if you don't solve the problem, then you will be going to just implementing those bugs into the next products, next part, and you won't solve the problem at all because it's not immediately visible for the organization. So for a long time, I was believing that the Andon is a really cool tool for ensuring the quality into the system, but it took me a while to understand this is the super cool tool for empowering the team, the development team, for making sure that the right decisions are being made. Now, again, an employee in Toyota with no high education can stop the line, which costs a hell of a lot of money. The question is, in your organization, can developers stop the line when you have a quality problem, or you still need to deliver, right? We still need to continue. So when we go into that daily and we hear we have a problem with the testing environment, we have a problem with the automated test, and no one reacts, how much does it say? So what is Andon for you? What is the stop the line code for you? When do you know that the team needs, that the team member needs to help, and how he or she gets the help from the team? This is a super important question for your team to ask. And the other thing I've learned from Kiro, I just mentioned before, is that in this case, when I have a Andon being pulled, Andon code being pulled, the other team members are supposed to say thank you for noticing that there is some problem, right? So again, not blaming someone for screwing up the build, but thank you for noticing that our building procedure is not perfect. Thank you that we can improve the system. And also the role of the manager is different. The role of the leader is different. So you can find the free leaders here. You may know some of them. So the role of the leader is basically to help those people. So for example, sorry about that. So for example, when I pull the cord, I'm supposed to help these people. But if my team does not understand, my team member does not understand how to do stuff, then I'm supposed to explain this stuff to that person, which is another thing. So leader roles change from the I'm gonna tell you how to do it to the role I know how to do it, I can help you. So for example, a line leader is supposed to know every single workstation, how to work on every single workstation. So anyone from my workstation can go to restroom and I still can, work on that specific place. I should know better than those people. So if they have any question, I can help them. And if my employee doesn't know how to do it, it's not the fault of my employee, it's my fault. So I need to take care of if my employee is making mistakes, then I need to take care of this one as a leader. I need to train this person. That's a completely different approach from what I've seen in many companies when the leader is basically, they're more for monitoring and making sure that stuff is happening. The other great thing about the leaders in Toyota is they are supposed to see what is happening. So Gensi Genbutsu is basically idea. Let's go to the factory floor and see how we're doing and see, what is really happening. So instead of looking at the Excel, instead of looking at your burn down charts, it's really go to the production line. And there's basically in Toyota, even the senior management, they spend at least an hour on the factory line. And when we've been to Toyota in Poland, they say the senior management are here at least 1 hour, and they really want to be more. They just are not able to do this because of the other responsibilities. So they walk the line, they look at the line, they visit the suppliers. If there's a problem with the suppliers, that they go to see what is happening at the suppliers. Now, again, in our context, the question of where's the game bus or where's this the place we go to see, and my answer is basically we go to see the software. So as long as we don't understand what is happening with the software development, then it's super hard to say what is happening in the organization. We can get a lot of this watermelon reporting when everybody inside knows it's red, when everybody outside knows it's green. But the truth is, like, if your leaders, if your managers cannot read the code, cannot understand what is you're doing, how they can understand what is happening in their organization? So how they can understand what is really happening? And one of the cool things here is also that when a manager walks or anyone walks the line, there's idea they are supposed to find the problems. And if you walk the line and you don't find any problem, then you go back and you take your managers and you go with your managers to find the problem. So what Toyota is saying is a lack of problems is a problem. So when we don't see the problems, then we have a huge problems. And again, this is a great example from Toyota in the US when they started working on the new line, and the manager proudly says, we have not stopped this line for a month, so everything is working perfectly. And the leader from Toyota is saying, no, it's not. You have to stop the line because there are some problems. So if you don't stop the line, you don't see the problem. So again, in your organization, how do you see the problems? How do you see what is really happening in the organization? Now, coming to the conclusion, is the question is, when I go into the Toyota and we see all the fancy stuff, maybe it's all the companies do the same. So is there any difference between the Toyota and the other companies? It's the right question to ask. Maybe it's not just about the Toyota. And we were lucky to see Mazda headquarters just a few days later. And we get into the production line, we walk to the production line, and yes, we see in the same tool. So we see the Kanban, we see in Andons, we see people using the same solution as Toyota is using. And we also see the things that Toyota would call waste. So we seen, and there was a bigger distance between the workstation. We've seen that the people are doing additional movements they should not probably do. So the takeaway from this one is that it's super easy to copy the tools from other companies, right? And this is what often happens when we go agile, when we go lean. Is basically, you put the people into the room, they are reporting to their, used to be a project manager, sorry, now it's called Scrum Master, and we are agile because we have daily stand-ups, so we're cool with this one, right? So this is often what is happening in the organization. Or we give them the planning poker cards, they estimate, so we need to be agile here. Again, there's one thing what we do, there's one thing, what kind of problems we're solving. So to understand the problems, to understand the context of the organization, we need to see the organization, not just to hear what they're doing. But coming back to Mazda, is you may think that Mazda, there's something wrong about Mazda because they don't do everything that the Toyota is doing, but the Mazda is a great car. So when we get there into Mazda, it's like in Toyota, we spend most of the time listening to the Toyota production system. So we hear about the process, how they make a car. But in Mazda, like 45 minutes out of an hour tour is about the design of the car. How do we design the car? So for example, when they design the car, the designer works with the mirror to make sure that the lights shine correctly and reflects correctly on the car. And what you can see on this picture, that's a clay model. So 1-to-1 clay model to make sure that the car just looks great. So if you would ask me, I would really love to have a car designed by Mazda and assembled in Toyota. And the bottom line here is that both Toyota and Mazda are great companies, and they have a different culture. And you just cannot copy the culture. I mean, you're gonna try anyway. So there is this famous video from Henry Klinbeck about Spotify, and most people don't know, but the name of this video is Spotify Engineering Culture. So most people just copy the guides, you copy the squads, and you forget about the culture, you forget about the engineering part, and something goes wrong. So like we've seen with copying the different tools from Lean. So the thing is that every single team, every single organization, they have its own culture. Some of the organizations, some of the companies, they are aware of their culture, and the best companies, the best organization, they design not just the products but also the culture. So in Toyota, when you join the Toyota for the very first time, you're going to spend like 6 to 9 weeks learning about how to work there, but also about the culture. And in many companies we have seen the culture is super important part of what they talk about when you enter the company. So it's not just hiring for the skills, but it's also hiring for the culture fit. So people with a similar way of similar values, similar principles. And that will be it for now. So you can contact me by email or LinkedIn. You can find more about our visits to Toyota, to Mazda, and to Zappos on our blog. And you can find the podcast at the procognita.com/getagile. And last but not least, Michał mentioned already the book, so I'm going to show you this one to you. And you can find this on business@urbane.pl. And if there are any questions, then I'm happy to hear them.
Yes, thank you, Tomek, for the talk. We have many questions. So we will jump right in. So the first question is from Magdalena. The question is, what happens when an improvement requires some money?
I don't have a right answer to this one. I mean, the correct answer. One of the things I understand, from what I've seen is many improvements are super simple improvements. So for example, what I would learn is like when there was employee having a problem putting the cables inside the car because it's like a squeezy position you need to be in. What he did is he took a chair, like a super simple chair for going to fishing. He put a chair, he put it on the tool they have already to move items, so like a long arm to move items. So they put the chair on this one, and he was able to sit on the chair, go inside the car, put the cables inside, move himself outside the car. So most of those improvements require money. I do understand that the Toyota is investing a lot of money into their improvement, because what they do a simple analysis: how much we need to invest, how much money we're going to get from this one. So there's idea of a free analysis. So they look at the cost, they look at that return on investment. But what they also do is how we can solve this problem simple. So do not over-invest into the sophisticated tools. This is my recommendation. Especially talking about the software tools, we have a tendency of having a super advanced tools for solving simple problems. I hope that I answered this one.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is from Eva. She asks that speed can be exhausting. So how is Toyota addressing that?
Yeah, thank you. This is exactly what I was trying to say. Is we look at those people and say, hell no way, we cannot work this way. It's like a super hard to work. And we've seen in Mazda, we've seen in even in Toyota in Poland that the speed is slower. And this is for me, that was like it's hard. And what I learned from Kiro, this is why I raise the conversation with Kiro, is just super deep into the insight. Is that they make it, they raise the bar. So most of the components, when they create the line, they put the speed of the component for the people who at average or even at the below average. So everybody can do this. In Toyota, you get to raise the bar. So you need to figure out how you make your life easier. So a challenge, and as a team members, not the team member, by the way, because they work as a team. And even on the production line, you are supposed to know as many workstations as possible, so you can easily rotate. So, for example, if you're working for half a day in one side of the car, then you're supposed to work for the second half of the day on the second side of the car, so the different muscles will work for you. So you should know different skills from your team. By the way, how about your team, software team, knowing the different skills from the other team member? No, we're not allowed to do that, right? So so this is one of my concerns: is how do we create the environment that people can work on the efficient level. And what I learned from Kiro is that is on purpose. That is something they know about, and this is something how they want the people to solve the problems.
Okay, great. Next question is it's about undone card and stop the line. So I understand that when there's, like Joe Justice said, like humans do creative problem solving. So when there is some creative problem solving required, it makes sense to stop the line and think about how to solve the problem, how to prevent the problem in the future. However, there are probably sometimes there are, let's say, anticipated or planned failures. For example, you are running a data center and they have a lot of hard drives, and they know that hard drives fail. And when a hard drive fails, it doesn't necessarily require creative problem solving. You just have to replace it. So I was wondering, how does this stop the line culture compare to like regular failures, and is there some redundancy at the tool infra level?
Awesome. So okay, that's a story for like another talk. So I'm gonna put it short. We have 9 minutes. So I'm gonna put it super short because that's a long conversation. So starting from the very beginning. In the 1980s, when Americans start discovering what is happening in Japan, they start doing trips to Japan, and what they discover is that Japanese employee can stop the line, when in the US the only senior management could stop the line. And what they also discover is, what is interesting, the line in the factory in the US car manufacturer was stopping way more often than the car line, the assembly line in the Japan. And the reason for that is because they started from solving the problems, but as soon as they started solving the problems, they were able to have longer times of line going in, not interrupted. So this is one thing. So this is about lowering the water, the idea of lowering the water in your organization. So you get a different problems. Now, if you have a lot of water, you don't see the problem. But the moment you lower the inventory in Toyota, then you start discovering this problem. And this is basically what we do when we try to use Kanban or Scrum. Then we basically have a work in progress limit, and we're trying to figure out how do we deliver fast a small amount of items instead of just being busy. I go into the organization, I look at the board, and we have 40 items in progress, and I ask them why. Is because most of those items is stuck. So you have a lot of items and you can stop all of them, then it's super easy to say to switch to some other problem and just don't solve your switch to different task and don't solve your problem. Now going into your question about the disk failure. So what they do, they usually have some buffer between the lines. So there's some buffer. So if this line stops, this line can work for a while, and this line can. Oops, sorry, you don't see this one hand. And this line can work for a while a little bit. So there is some buffer built into Toyota production system. But also, the lower the buffer is, the more likely you're going to solve the problem. Again, coming back to the disk failure, the question is how your organization is going to react to disk failure. And one of the great things the companies do is they do a plan a failure of the system. So for example, they switch off part of the system and see how the system is going to react. Because if you know as an organization how to react for these cases, then most likely it's not going to take you 2 days or 7 days to solve the problem, but it's going to take you 5 days. Sorry, 5 minutes or 5 hours, right? Because we think we know how to solve the problem when the disk goes down, but most likely what we discover is that the moment the disk goes down, then unfortunately some other things goes down and some other things are not working, and the people who are supposed to have the knowledge are on the vacation, and someone who has the passwords, admin password, is on the vacation, and you figure out that solving the problem is super difficult. So if you do this on purpose, you just simulate the failure of the system, then more likely you're going to be secure in the case when the disk is really going to break.
Cool. Okay, next question is from Emilia, and she asks about non-obvious physical tools. So what tools have you seen other than the regular ones that we know, post-its and boards and stuff? Have you seen any non-obvious physical tools that you think might be relevant for people watching this talk?
That's a tough question. I've seen the different tools. Now, without the pictures, it's like without being able to draw, it's kind of challenging to show it. And also, you asked me about non-trivial. We can move to software development, which is more difficult question. What I'm thinking about is like one of the cool things I've seen in Toyota in Poland. I didn't notice this in the US. I don't know. Sorry, in Japan. I don't know. It was there. Is that they have also the sound signals. So, for example, when the new parts were coming into the factory, then there was I think they had the music from the Pirates from the Caribbean playing on the loudspeaker. So that was super cool. So that could be not so obvious tool. So how do we let people know that the build is, for example, done, right? How do we share with the other peoples?
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool, actually. Okay. One more question. How does work-life balance look like in Japan?
That's a tough question. I was thinking about putting this into the slide. I have a picture of the guy sitting standing in a train, holding the rail, and like falling asleep. So I've seen those kids going into the train, doing the workshop, doing their homework in the train. So frankly saying, I don't know much about the culture from the work-life balance, and many times I've seen there is a problem with this one in the Japan. The good things, what I see is that it is not just about Japan. So what I understand is that the moment Japanese car manufacturer, so Toyota in this case, go to Poland, go to US, go to other countries, they are able to move the culture. It's not about moving the tools, by the way. So what is happening in Toyota is you are not supposed to copy every single solution the other factories has. Sure, they have a knowledge sharing. So the session when you go with other factories and you share the knowledge, share the ideas the other people have, but it's up to you which of those tools you're going to use. So it is about the culture in Toyota, not just about the Japanese culture. And if you look at the Mazda, which is Japanese company, then you can see bigger difference between Mazda and Toyota in Japan than between Toyota in Japan and Toyota in Poland. So I don't know how to answer for the work-life balance question in the Japan, but I don't think it's like a specific to Toyota in this case.
Okay, and the last question: have you changed anything about how you manage your company, Procognita, after visiting Toyota in Tokyo?
That's a super tough question. I don't know. We had a lot of conversation about this one, and it's really, as I said, it's really one thing to read about this one, and the second thing is about understanding, seeing this in person. So also keep in mind that it's like an hour, 2 hours of the trip, so you just basically see a little bit, hear about a little bit. I think that one thing that we took from those companies, like if you don't focus on the culture, then the tools don't care. I mean, you need to have a tools to implement the solution you're trying to find. But if you forget about culture, so if you don't define the culture, if you don't know what is your company for, and I think this is something we focus on for the last 2 years. So defining, what is our vision, what is our mission, and how do we really solve the problem. And I think we're kind of close to this one, to answering this question. Not 100% there yet, but closer than we used to be 2 years ago.